Magandang umaga po para bukas.
Shoutout nga po pala kay paring Ricky Barrientos.
At kay Maring Nanay Helen Diaz sa kanilang napakatiyagang pagsubaybay sa atin.
Alam niyo po ba na tanggap ng mga kapatid nating Muslim ang dogma ng Immaculada Concepcion?
Kapag nagbabasa at nagninilay ang mga Muslim sa Quran, isang chapter o kabanata po ang nilalaman ng buhay ng mahal na Birhen sa kanilang aklat.
Ito ang nagiging daan upang sila ay mas mapalapit at makilala nila ang Panginoong Hesus. Pakinggan po natin ang buhay ni Nikki Kingsley na isang dating Muslim na ngayon naging Katoliko na po.
And in the Quran, there's a chapter dedicated to the Virgin Mary. And when I came across that chapter, it's called Surah Maryam. Maryam is, the name for Mary. I was just so drawn to this beautiful woman who was so holy and so pious. And she's the only woman that has a chapter dedicated to her. And I was just so drawn to her. I fell in love with her. And I would read that chapter every single day. And I was pregnant with my daughter at that time. And I just asked that my child would be as holy as this woman was. I went into St. Patrick's Cathedral one day, and this was just a TripAdvisor, thing. It wasn't like I was seeking anything more. I had never researched Christianity. I had no interest in anything but Islam. So I was seeking Allah in the Islamic box. I had strict boundaries where I was going to find my answers. So I walked into St. Patrick's Cathedral just, to look at it like a tourist. And I walked in, and the first thing that hit me, there was a stained glass picture, of Jesus that was kind of suspended. And I saw his face, and it's like his eyes were alive, and they just looked right into me. And it made me very uncomfortable. And so I walked around, and part of me was feeling like I was sinning, because in Islam you don't have idols. I had just stepped into a church, and so I was going through a lot of turmoil within. And now I felt this Jesus was following me. And St. Patrick's Cathedral is magnificent. It was just so beautiful, and I just walked around admiring it, but afraid at the same time, and Jesus following me. And so I walked around, admired everything, and near the exit is the little gift shop. So I stopped there, the kids were with me, and all of a sudden I heard a woman's voice in my ear, my left ear, the most sweetest voice, and she said, "Come back, come back." And I looked, and there was nobody there. And I'm thinking, okay, this is not happening. So I ignored it. And then again, that whisper. And then I knew it was Mary. And standing in there, I didn't think Maryam, that the word was Mary. It's her. And I had loved her as a Muslim. And so I couldn't just ignore her and walk out. And when the words came, "Come back," she told me exactly where. She was calling me to her chapel at the back of St. Patrick's. She was calling me to her chapel. And so I went back because I couldn't ignore her. Yeah, I loved her so much. And so I went into her chapel, and I stood there because I wasn't going to kneel. I'm a Muslim. And I stood and I asked her, "What do you want?" And I heard nothing. But I felt such a peace. And, I came back there. I was there in New York City for like 3 days. Every day I had to come back
to the chapel.
I felt I could not, I had to go there and just get that peace.
A lot of viewers may not realize that within Muslim, Jesus is a part of the story.
Yes.
But a different understanding of Jesus.
So Jesus is a prophet, the mother of the Virgin Mary, Maryam.
The son of the...
Yes, the son of the Virgin Mary. And he is human, fully human. He had the gift of healing, and he was born and he died, and he'll come at the end of time, but there is no divinity linked to him at all. He is a prophet with the gift of healing.
So seeing the portrait of Jesus and sensing his eyes
Right.
didn't really be a break from a Muslim background.
No,
right?
there's something special about him,
Right.
but it unsettled me
Yeah.
because it felt like he was alive.
Okay.
Is what got me. And in Islam, it is a virgin birth, so that is accepted. And but
You
at
couldn't
this,
get away from Our Lady.
no, but it was her who was more close to me at that. I didn't really feel Jesus, but it was or the prophet Isa, but it was more Maryam, Mary, and because it was her who called me, I couldn't turn away. And so I did that, went back for the next few days, heard nothing more, nothing else happened. And I just, life went on back to normal. And I just thought, well, Maryam, I loved her, and, it's just a nice experience. And that was it. And life went on. I fasted, Ramadan came, and everything. This was in the springtime when I was at St. Patrick. And then it was December. And the first week of December comes around, and I was asleep. And, when you're deep asleep and somebody gently kind of shakes you, and you're kind of between the sleeping and the waking, that's the kind of, I felt somebody kind of just shook me a little, and I kind of was half awake. I could tell the sun was just rising. And Jesus and Mary were at my bedside. And it was just beyond words. It was like heaven had come into the room. And they prayed with me. And we discussed my whole life from the moment, even before my conception. It's like we had this discussion of what my life was going to be in heaven. And now they were reminding me. And the joy that filled my heart, it's like my spirit was dancing. And my body, I knew, was still on the bed, but my spirit was not. And I was dancing, embracing, and we prayed. And as this was happening, a light was being infused into me. And when I woke up that morning, I was no longer the same person. I was changed.
Back to the journey home. I'm your host, Marcus Grodi, and our guest is Nikki Kingsley. I interrupted you. You were right telling us something really, really significant, and that is you're walking down the street. You've walked through 100 times that old song from I've walked the street. But all of a sudden you're seeing things that had always been there, but you never saw them before.
Yeah, I'd lived on the same street for years now, and I would drive the same way to work, and I had never noticed how many churches were on that street. And as I'm driving, my attention would be drawn. I would see the church, and I would see the cross. And it's like this light would shine on the cross. And, it's like, how could I have not noticed all these churches? Or if I went into a store and if there was a Bible in the store or anything that was related to Christianity, my attention would be taken. I would notice it. It would be like a light shining on it, and a voice would say, "Look." And I couldn't get away from it. It was constant. And now, you have to remember, I'm in my Muslim mindset, and to me, this is very scary because I have no desire to be anything but a Muslim, and why is my attention being taken to these Christian symbols? I didn't want it. So I started to go through a struggle within my mind. And I started to have dreams and visions after that. And every dream, every vision, every interior voice, everything was Christian related. It would be Jesus, it would be Mary. And it had nothing to do with Islam. And it really scared me. And then I got angry. I got angry with God because I thought, Allah, I have been praying for all this time, prostrate hours praying to you, asking to reveal yourself to me, draw me closer to you. And now you send me Jesus and Mary. Why didn't you send me Muhammad? Because that would make sense to me, that you are answering my prayer. But I knew it was God who was doing that. Like, I didn't question that. I could feel God's presence. But it didn't make sense to me. That why and I was afraid, because I believed Christians were going to go to hell because they believed in a Son of God. And God, Allah was the only one. You know, he had no children. He was not begotten. And now I'm seeing this Jesus. And it started to really scare me. And the Jesus that would come to me, and I would feel his presence, and he would show up in a dream, was not a man. There was power that came from him, and there was authority that came from him. He was not like Prophet Isa, that's, as a Muslim I believe, who had died, and now I'm seeing him in a dream. It was not that. He was alive. I could feel he was alive, and there was an authority that he came with. And I remember in one dream, the love that came out of him was so intense that in my dream I was dying because I could barely take the love. It was all centered on love. And I couldn't deny that he was more than a person. And there was my struggle as a Muslim. Now, I refuse to research Christianity on the internet because I don't want to feed into what's happening. I was trying to reject it. I didn't want to research it. I didn't want to read the Bible because I was scared if I got into it where it would take me. So I was rejecting everything I could. I'm like, okay, this was going to be between me and God. There was going to be nobody's research, nothing. So I didn't do anything. And this continued with me for a year and a half. Wow. And I was taken down this road where, and when Mary would call me, and I would, she would ask me to go to a certain place that was Christian, of course, and one was like an outdoor shrine. And I parked my car. I was so angry because I'd had enough of these dreams and visions. I wanted these to stop so I could go back to my Muslim world. I was getting exhausted. And I remember getting out of the car, slamming the door shut, and there was a statue of Mary, and I stood in front of her and said, "What do you want from me? Why are you doing this to me?" And I physically felt these hands on me, turning me to the other side. And when I looked there was the statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And when I looked at him, I couldn't stop looking at him. I thought I was going to melt. All I could feel was love. So when I asked her, "What do you want?" she turned me to her son. And I started to go to that outdoor shrine every day. And I wouldn't go to her anymore. I was going to the statue of Jesus. I'd spent hours there. And all I would, I was trying to reject him, but I couldn't leave him either. There was this draw to him. And this continued, long story again, and finally...
I'm curious, it isn't just Jesus, it's Jesus with the Sacred Heart.
Yes.
And I'm wondering how you...
Well, I didn't know what that meant. Today I can tell you it was a Sacred Heart.
But at that time...
it was just Jesus pointing to his heart.
Okay.
And like I said, I've had dreams where the love is so intense I could just die. So he's pointing to his heart, and all I could feel was love. And so there was a lady who I knew at work, and she was the only one I started to share what was happening, these dreams and visions. And she just looked at me and said, "Oh my gosh, you are so blessed. You need to come to my church." So now she's Christian, this lady at work. No, okay. I mean, I didn't know denominations. I could care less. I just knew she was Christian. I was telling her what was happening to me. And she said, "You have to come to my church. You are so blessed." And I said, "I don't want to go to a church. Why would I go to a church? I'm trying to get away from this." And so, but it continued so much, and it came where it was December. It was Christmas time. And I had gotten to a point where I wanted an answer from Jesus, and I wanted to be done. And I said, okay, I will go to a church. I didn't tell my friend because I didn't want pressure. I thought I'll go to a church on my own for Christmas, and I am going to ask Jesus, because the church is his home, what he wants from me, and I want to be done with this. And so I went to a Christmas midnight service to a church down the road from my house. To me, a church was a church. I didn't know denomination. And it was a Christian church, and I went in, and there was a service, and pastor did the reading. They passed a tray around with little cups, and I participated in everything. And I was waiting because Jesus was going to tell me what he wants from me. That was my deal for coming in the church. And it ended, and we processed out with candles singing. And it was a beautiful service. I could feel the love. It was wonderful. People were welcoming. And I had taken this big step for Jesus. And I came out, and I was so disappointed because he wasn't there. I felt this emptiness in my heart because I knew what his presence would feel like. I just knew. And I walked out thinking, Jesus, you're not even in your own church. Like, that's how it felt. You weren't there. And I came looking for you for an answer. So now where am I going to go? I don't know what to do because I want to end this. I want a closure to this. So I told my friend, I said, I went to a church and wasn't there. And she asked me where, and I told her, and she said, just please come to my church. And I said, Debbie, what difference does it make what church I go to? A church is a church. She said, no, just please come to my church. And I was desperate. I said, okay, I'll come to your church, but I'm not doing a service again and spending all this time there. Just take me when no one's there. I'll know if he's really there. And then, so let's not waste time. So one morning I go with her on a weekday, walk in, nobody's there. I took my first step in. It was a Catholic church. And to me, what's a Catholic church? It's just a church, right? And I took my first step in, and I took a breath, and I said, he lives here. I can feel him. I felt physically his presence. And I had no idea the difference between the other church and this church. It was just a church. And I just sat down. I'm like, okay, I finally found your home.
Napanood po natin ang napakagandang buhay ni Nikki Kingsley, na kung saan ating mapagninilayan na napakalaki palang kabalintunaan ang nangyayari sa ating mga tinatawag na Kristiyano. Nagba-viral ngayon na binabasag dahil sa galit ang imahen ng Mahal na Birheng Maria. Inaakusahan pa ng mga hindi totoo na mga akusasyon, gaya ng hindi daw birhen ang Mahal na Birheng Maria. At marami daw na mga kapatid, marami daw kapatid si Jesus. Ibig sabihin, marami ang naging anak ng Mahal na Birheng Maria.
Kaya nga, nakakalungkot po talaga ang isipin at pakinggan ang mga ganoong balita na mapapanood natin minsan, kahit na po dito sa YouTube. Makikita po natin yung mga ganoong mga eksena tungkol sa ating Mahal na Birheng Maria.
Tama. Biruin mo, ang mga Muslim na hindi Kristiyano, hindi naniniwala sa anak ng Diyos, hindi kinikilala sa Jesus bilang Panginoon at Diyos, pero naniniwala sa ina ng ating Panginoong Jesus. Samantalang ang ating mga kapatid na Kristiyano ay binabasag, galit sa ina ng anak ng Diyos. Kaya napakalaking kabalintunaan. Kaya mga kapatid, ipanalangin po natin na sana maunawaan ng ating mga kapatid na ang papel ng Mahal na Birheng Maria ay ilapit tayo sa kanyang anak na si Jesus, at hindi upang agawin ang atensyon o ang pagsamba sa Diyos na makapangyarihan sa lahat.
Amen.